Okay, this is going to be the final reading, I think, for at least, I don't know for this series, but at least for tonight, because you should already be, I think, motivated to read Man and People. It's on Google Books. Go to books.google.com. You type in Man and People. You might also need to type in something like Ortega y Gasset. Just see the what gets over here. You'll see the in the description. I have the spelling of the author's name and everything. You can look it up. Right now we're on page 66. If you do a preview of the book as given on Google Books. Okay, so he says, to this structural law of our world, which consists, I repeat, in the observation that at any moment our world is composed of a few present things and a great many latent ones, we will now add a second law, which is no less evident, namely, that a thing is never present to us by itself, but, on the contrary, we always see a thing standing out against other things to which we pay no attention, and which form a ground against which what we do see stands out. So if you're looking at this video, I am the figure. There are certain parts of me that you're going to be paying attention to that are, he doesn't say this, but that are formative, that are the formative elements, like my eyes, my lips, my nose, my facial features, my shoulders. And then there ought to be formed elements, which are like the sort of, or, are the less obvious parts of me. That's the part of the figure that I am. And there's also a background. So he's saying that in addition to there being this actuality, habituality distinction, there's also a figure ground distinction that goes along with it. Namely that you have a few present things, a great many latent things. Whereas like, you might say that the present things are the I guess you might say, I think that you'd say that the present things are the formed things, and the things that you don't notice are the formative, but that's just reversing what I just said. But it seems to me that the background is really formative for the formed figure, but that the figure itself has its own formative and formed elements within it. Anyway, okay, so he keeps going now. He says, first structural law, second structural law is a figure ground. Here it is clear why I call these laws structural laws. They define for us not the things that are in our world, but the structure of our world. To speak strictly, they speak of its anatomy, the anatomy of the world. Thus, this second law, the figure ground law, tells us the world in which we have to live always has two distances or organs, the things, or things that we see attentively, and a ground against which they stand out. So these are the two distances or organs, he calls them, the figure that we see attentively and the ground against which these figures stand out. For you will observe that the world always holds out one of its parts or things to us as a promontory of reality, leaving as an unheeded ground to the thing or things to which we are tending a second distance that functions as the ambient in which the thing appears to us. So this is kind of his harking back to his point about, I think, about the hall, so that it's kind of a structural feature of reality is that we're always sort of like in some, if there are ever an interaction between two objects, let's say between myself, I'm not going to take myself as an object, but let's say my body as taken as an object, like my finger, and this cup, it always takes place within a third larger encompassing, whether it's the sky or whatever, larger encompassing scene or whatever, a larger encompassing object or whatever. Anyway, he says that, okay, for you will observe that the world always holds out, so what he's saying is that there's always more, a surplus of reality. There's always more to see, always more to, you never can look at the whole world all at once because there's this latent ground, right? There's a figure, which is what you see, but then there's this ground, which is always structuring it, which you can't ever get all at once because as soon as you go to look at the ground, well, now something else becomes its background. And if you go look at that, it has its own background. Everything has its own background, which is obscure and latent. He says that you will observe that the world always holds out one of its parts or things to us. Well, anyway, that was a bad description when I said it still holds, but that's not relevant to what he was saying. Anyway, for you will always observe that the world always holds out one of its parts or things to us as a promontory of reality, leaving as an unheeded ground to the thing or things to which we are attending a second distance that functions as the ambit in which the thing appears to us. This ground, this second distance, the background, this ambit is what we call horizon. Everything that we notice, so this is important, everything that we notice, to which we pay attention, which we look at and concern ourselves with, has a horizon from which and within which it appears. So things that you see, they come out of this sort of horizon, and they also appear in the horizon. Let's see, how much time do I have left? Okay, horizon actually comes from a Greek word, which is, I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but it's something like horizos or something. And it sort of has a dual function. And it comes from, I think, the word for boundary. Boundary, I think, that's right. So the boundary of this book has a double function. This is not the exact way. Well, anyway, it's got boundaries all over it that delimit or say, like, here's the book, not the book. So it's sort of similar to what Fred or Conference Report was talking about a while ago. But not only does the boundary of the book delimit it and say, okay, this is what it is now from here on out. This is not the book. This is the book. It also constitutes the book. So the boundary of a thing not only tells you when it stops, but it also shapes the thing and makes it what it is. Because without a boundary, you wouldn't be able to have a thing, because you wouldn't be able to say where it stops, where it begins, what's separate from it, what's not it, what is it. Okay, so he says this ground, or the second distance, this ambit, is the background that a figure stands on. So when you look at this book, the background, this ground, second distance, here's the figure, here's the ground, it's called a horizon. Everything that we take notice, to which we pay attention, which we look at and concern ourselves with, has a horizon from which and within which it appears to us. I'm now referring only to what is visible and present. The horizon, too, is something that we see, that is there for us, patent, but it almost always exists for us, and we see it as something not attended to, because our attention is held by this or that or the other thing, which at any instant in our life is playing the role of protagonist. Now, beyond the horizon is the part of the world that is not now present to us, the part of it that is latent for us. So the horizon delimits what's present, and beyond the horizon is what's latent. This somewhat further complicates the structure of the world for us, because now that we have three planes or distances in it, as foreground, thing that is occupying us, as middle distance, the horizon of vision in which the thing appears, and as far distance, the now latent beyond. So let's see if we have time to wrap this up. Okay, so in any the structure of the world that he's laying out, there's three planes or distances in the radical plane of reality. He says that there's the foreground, which is the thing that is occupying you when you're looking at it. There's this middle distance, which is the horizon of vision. So it's, if you look around, every time you see a thing, there's this sort of, there's a limit to how far you can see. The horizon. If you're looking out in the ocean, you see the horizon. That's as far as you can see. And then there's what's beyond the horizon, which, sort of like the horizon always moves with you. So no matter how far you walk on the beach, the horizon is always sort of extending. You can never really get beyond it. You have this sense that beyond it, there is something. The world does outside your room that you're in, there is something out there. So the horizon is what sort of are like the walls of your room. There's the thing, the middle distance is the walls around your room, and then beyond that, there's the beyond the horizon, which is the world that keeps on going outside its presence to you. So there's like two layers of latency here. There's this presence and absence playing with the thing, with the horizon, and